Hi, 8th graders. Hope you're having a good day. You should follow along in your notebook, write down all the problems, do the work, and then you can put your answers into Schoology as you solve it. So this is target practice number 63. If we're looking at number 1, 8 to the 0 power. So if you, I'm sure Miss Rose or Mr. Lentz or Mr. Last went through this during class, but remember that anything to the 0 power is equal to 1. So 8 to the 0 power would be 1. Anything to the 0 power is 1. Number 2, if we have 4 to the power of -2, and remember you can pause this anytime so that you can write all this down in your notebook because this will be super helpful for you to have during the target check tomorrow. So 4 to the -2nd power, anything with a negative exponent would be underneath in a fraction, so that becomes the denominator. So it would be the same as 1 over 4 squared. 4 squared is 16, so then it would be 1/16. Okay, then for number 3, we have 3/7 to the -2nd power. So if you remember from when you have a fraction with an exponent, the whole exponent goes to the numerator and the denominator. So I'm going to rewrite it then as 3 to the -2nd power over 7 to the -2nd power. And then they're actually going to flip-flop because 3 to the -2nd power is really just going to be 1 over 3 squared. 7 to the -2nd power is, because it's on the bottom, it's going to go to the top, so then it's going to be 7 squared over 1. So then if we put those together, we actually have 7 squared on the top and then 3 squared on the bottom. And I know that 7 squared is 49 and 3 squared is 9. So then we would have 49/9. X to the -2nd power is going to be, so it's a negative power. So that means that you're going to make it a positive exponent and put it on the bottom of the fraction. So you do that and put your answer in. Okay, so for number 5, we have 1 over y to the -2nd power. So again, the y to the 2nd power being in the denominator position is now going to flip and go into the numerator position. So it's going to be the opposite. So basically it's going to be the reciprocal and the new exponent is going to be positive. So flip those around, make it a positive exponent. For number 6, we have a squared and then b to the -3rd power. So a squared is going to stay the same. Nothing's going to happen to that. And then b to the -3rd power is now basically going to become 1 over b cubed. And so then that 1, so it's really a squared times 1 over b cubed, which is really just going to be a squared over b cubed. Okay, for 7, we have x to the 0 power. So remember what anything equals when you have a 0 exponent. And then if you look at this one, which looks like it's going to be a lot of work, but whatever, if anything is to the power of 0, it always equals the same thing. So think about what those answers would be and put those into your target practice. Pause the video as you are doing so. And then our last two are going to make us think a little bit. So I know that f to the -5 is now going to come into the denominator position. And then I know that h to the -2nd is going to move up to the numerator. So I'm going to rewrite that then. And it's going to be g to the 4th, h squared over f to the 5th. So I flip-flopped the f and the h, and then I made the exponents positive. For number 10, I'm going to pause and put this on a different slide so I have more room. All right, so for number 10, take a second and write this down in your notebook because this one will be super helpful to have tomorrow on the target check. So we're going to take our -5, and before we think about flip-flopping the numerators and the denominators, we're first going to distribute this -5 to every single power in the numerator and in the denominator. Remember, when we have a power of a power, we multiply. So I have my q to the -1st. So I'm first going to start here. Q to the -1st times, so -1 times -5 is 5. And then I have my r. I'm going to do 3 times -5, which is going to be -15. Then I go back down to my q, and that's a power of 1 times -5. So then I have q to the -5. And then we have r to the -2 times -5 would be 10. So now we need to do some flip-flopping. So q is going to stay the same. R to the -15th power is going to go to the denominator, and q to the -5th, because we're really only looking at exponents with a negative, or numbers with a negative exponent, and that's what's going to flip-flop. So then this is going to go up top to the numerator. So let's rewrite this before we try to combine. So I have my q to the 5th, which I already have, and then this q to the -5th is going to become q to the 5th as well, because remember, once we switch it up, it's a positive exponent. Then we still have r to the 10th down here, and then my r to the 15th is going to become, r to the -15th is going to become r to the positive 15th. So then, remember, when we have a exponent times another exponent, we just add them together. So we would do 5 plus 5. So q to the 10th over, and then r 10 plus 15 would be r to the 25th. Okay, so if you have your quiz practice already, take it out and you can add on to that. Otherwise, you could just do this in your notebook and then you'll get the quiz practice tomorrow in class. So I'm not going to do all the questions. I'm going to skip around. So the first one, we have -4x squared over 24x to the 5th. So we're going to simplify this. So -4, 24, so they can both be divided by 4. So we have -1/6. So I'm going to write it as -1 and then the 6. And then we have x squared and x to the 5th. Remember, when they're exponents on top of each other or dividing in a fraction, we subtract the exponents. So if I subtract 2 minus 5, I would get -3, so then it would be x to the -3, which would then make it so it would go to the denominator. So I would have -1 over 6x to the 3rd power. Okay, so looking at number 2, we have this whole thing to the 2nd power. So that means we're going to multiply every single exponent by 2. So the 4 to the 1st power is going to be multiplied times 2, the 7 times 2, and then the 2 goes underneath to the 7 to the 1st power and to the r squared. So I'm going to rewrite all of that. So we would have 4 to the 2nd power, p to the 14th power, over 7 to the 2nd power, r to the 4th power. And then that all is, or then we're going to, I know that 4 squared is, 16, so it'd be 16p to the 14th. 7 squared is 49, so it'd be 49r to the 4th. Nothing else can be simplified. So that would be our answer. So here's number 3. So I would suggest that you pause the video, do number 3, get your answer, come back, check all of my work, watch me do it, and then make corrections if needed. But you do it first on your own and then watch my stuff. So again, we have this whole thing to the second power. So we're gonna multiply all the exponents by 2. So that goes out, we have 6 to the first, 7 to the first. So everything times 2. So 6 to the first times 2 would be 6 squared. And then w to the 5th times 2 would be w to the 10th. Then we'd have 7 squared. And then p to the 6th, 6 times 2, so it'd be p to the 12th. And then r to the 6th. Then we're going to simplify. So let me get a different color. 6 squared is 36. W to the 10th. 7 squared would be 49. P to the 12th. R to the 6th. And then we are going to leave it like that because it can't be simplified anymore. So for 4, 5, and 6, remember that anything to the power of 0 equals 1. So this whole thing right here, you don't even need to simplify it or anything because it's all to the power of 0. So it is all going to equal 1. Pause the video and do 5 and 6 on your own and then come back and check. So x to the 4th is going to stay the same, but y to the 0 is 1. So we don't even need to write that. And then we have x to the negative 2. Remember, a negative exponent goes to the top, or it flip-flops. So then we would have x to the 4th times x to the 2, or x squared. And then remember, if we're multiplying exponents, we divide, or oh my gosh, we don't divide, we add. So 4 plus 2 is 6, so then I would have x to the 6th. For number 6, oops, I don't know what just happened, but I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. So this whole thing right here is to the power of 0, so I know that on the top I have 1. Then on the bottom I have 4, and I know that w to the negative first power goes to the top, so I'm just going to rewrite that actually right there, w to the first, and then the y squared stays on the bottom. So then my answer, I'm just going to simplify, get rid of that 1. My answer then would be w over 4y squared. Do 7, 8, and 9 on your own, and then here's number 10. So reminder that when we have an exponent or a number or a letter with a negative exponent, it flips to the bottom. So we now are going to have 3, and then on the bottom we have 4w to the 4th, and now 4w to the squared. When we're multiplying together, we would just add those exponents together. So we would end up with 3 over 4w to the 6th power. Number 11, remember, pause and try this and then come back and check it. We're going to have 2, and then m squared is going to stay here on the top. N to the negative 1 is going to move to the bottom. So then we have m cubed with our new n to the first that just moved down. Then remember, when we have the same variable with exponents in a fraction, we subtract the exponent. So we would subtract and we go top minus the bottom. So 2 minus 3 equals negative 1. So now we would have 2 over m to the negative 1 power, and then n, and then, oh, and then because it's negative 1, we can just leave it, we can just take the negative 1 away. We could keep it like that, or we could just rewrite it as 2 over mn, because we just assume that because m and n are on the bottom, then they both have a -1 exponent. Okay, the last one that I'm going to go through on this video is number 12, and then the rest of the quiz practice you try on your own, but we'll also go through in strategies again, even though you will have already taken the quiz, but we'll go through it again on Thursday, and then we will look at doing some corrections as well. So we're going to split this up by variables and by exponents. So I have -12 over 2. I'm going to do that first. -12 divided by 2 is -6. Then I have t to the -1st power and t to the -3rd power that they are literally going to flip-flop. T to the -1 is going to go up. T to the -3 is going to go on the... T to the -1 is going to go down. T to the -3 is going to go up. So t cubed, make my line, start adding things. Then we have my u's, which are just going to stay, except we have a u to the 5th and then a u to the 1st, which I'm going to subtract. 5 minus 1 is going to be 4, so then I'm going to end up with u to the 4th. And then lastly, we have our x's. This x to the 4th is going to go down, so I have x to the 5th, which is already down there, and then x to the 4th. So now we have, and then I forgot that we could cancel all this, so we're going to go back to here. T to the 3rd over t to the 1st. We're going to be able to subtract our exponents. 3 minus 1 is 2, so that leaves me with -6 t squared u to the 4th. And then we have x to the 5th times x to the 4th. So that's when we add our exponents, because we're just multiplying our variables together, we would end up with x to the 9th. So then that would be our final answer. So now you should have your target practice done and submitted and 100%. And then your quiz practice at least started either in your green sheet or in your notebook. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you all on Thursday.